Hey guys, Philip here with MD Fit, fourth year medical student. Today I wanted to talk about how to structure hybrid training, or at least how I structure my hybrid training. I'm somebody who has been training hybrid for about 6 to 8, maybe 8 years at this point. I started back in college before it was really big, before it blew up, and Nick Baer kind of took a hold of social media with his hybrid approach. And I think it's absolutely amazing what he's done because I think it's a very functional way to train. But I want to talk about a little bit about the insights that I've learned over time training in this way before it was popular, and just with a lot of experience. I think you learn a lot of lessons along the way. A little bit of background: what got me into hybrid training was I ran cross country in high school. I come from a kind of a running family, but in high school I was very skinny, very small, weak, all that, and I was just so tired of it. So I decided I'm going to pick up lifting, and I dove headfirst into lifting weights. And as was popular back then, the idea of cardio or running was just so toxic to the gains that you just can't do it if you want to build muscle. And so that's what I did. I didn't do any real cardio, and I suffered because of it. It came to the point where I was running a 10K one year, and I got beat by this kid who was probably in elementary school. He was probably no more than sixth grade. And yeah, he beat me in this 10K. I mean, you always kind of pick somebody that you're racing with, but I just realized, I'm this guy who exercises regularly. I like to consider myself to be in good shape, but I can't beat a child in a 10K. So to me, that was just such a point of kind of inner conflict, where I was just like, wow, I need to do something about this. So since then, my hybrid journey began. And I went through a long period of trying to run like a runner and lift like a lifter, not making a lot of progress because you're taxing your recovery way too much. Your body's not really able to super compensate. And so I want to talk about a little bit of the insights that I've learned. Now, I first found some hybrid training kind of literature or philosophy through this guy, Alex Viada. And he's not somebody that's talked about online too much nowadays, but I read his book called The Hybrid Athlete, and he's this amazing endurance athlete, an amazing powerlifter. He's an elite level powerlifter. He had like a 700-pound deadlift, and he was doing Ironmans as well at the same time. And it was just incredible to me how he could be almost elite in both of these different domains, seemingly competing endeavors. So I read his book, and that's really where it started. I mean, I still didn't quite understand and truly grasp and understand how to apply principles like specificity, volume, training intensity, periodization, all of these things that are extremely important when you're trying to balance these competing demands. So over time, as I progressed, as my knowledge base progressed, as my training experience progressed, I found certain things really helped me in my journey for hybrid training. First and foremost, I think the most important thing is periodization. Now, periodization is a really important concept because it allows your body to it allows you to focus on one training modality at a time, and not necessarily neglect the other, but your body you're able to focus your recovery ability and your recovery potential so that you can properly super compensate towards one modality. So currently, I'm more in a running block right now. So I'm training for a marathon, and my cardiovascular training, right, I'm running 50 plus miles a week typically. And right now the focus is on running. And so structuring your training around running, you focus on, okay, how much do I want to run? And then you build your lifting around that. That's the first principle that I think is really important. Now, we could talk about all these different concepts very, very in depth, and one video is not going to be enough to cover every single one of these concepts in terms of how to properly apply it. But I just want to make this a more general video, and we can delve into them later. But periodization is a very, very crucial thing to understand. Just like in strength training, right? You can have a hypertrophy phase, and then you can have a strength building phase. Same thing with running. You have a base building phase, then you kind of have a more specific phase that is tailored towards the competition that you're doing. So in periodization, when you're trying to periodize and program properly, you always go from less specific to more specific. So in the case of the marathon, you want to base build. So you want to run a lot of miles, right? You want to build up to a large amount of miles at a potentially slower pace, or definitely at a slower pace than you would. Just get used to running a lot of miles. And then as you get closer to the marathon, you want to be dialing your paces towards the pace that you want to target for the marathon. Same thing with lifting. If you want to increase your 1 rep max, you build a lot of volume, you build a lot of work capacity. With higher rep training, higher volume training, you can hypertrophy your muscles, and then you go into more of a strength based block where you do lower rep ranges, lower volume, higher intensity. And intensity does not mean you're pushing hard. This is also a word that's misused a lot of time. Intensity in the exercise science context means weight. So lower volume, higher intensity to get your body used to using heavier weights, neurologically adapted to using heavier weights, and capable of handling those heavier loads. So periodization is number one, something that you need to learn. You need to learn how to focus on properly for hybrid training. Now, as a quick aside, I think these concepts are a little less applicable for a lot of people who are just kind of interested in maybe aesthetics, just want to look jacked and run. Whatever your goals are is great, but I would not say that, if you're somebody that runs a lot and you just train upper body and you're kind of neglecting leg training, you're not necessarily doing true hybrid training in the real sense of the word, because you're never going to be a strong person, right? Even if you're benching over 3 plates, and if you're not squatting something that is in relation to your bench press, right? You're neglecting your lower body. And if you're neglecting over kind of like 50% of your musculature or more, because more of your musculature is in your lower body, if you're neglecting over 50% of your musculature, you're just not a generally strong person, which is fine. But it's these considerations aren't quite as important. So moving on, periodization is extremely important. The next I want to talk about is fatigue management. Now, understanding how to manage fatigue and mitigate fatigue is super important, because it's super easy to run yourself into the ground when you're doing hybrid training. One thing that I did for the longest time was just be in this overtrained state. And when you're not recovering, you're not able to super compensate. This is a concept that took me a really long time to grasp. But the fact is that you make your progress not when you're training, you make it when you're recovering. So you need to allow your body adequate time to recover. You need to be getting plenty of sleep, and you need to be fueling properly. You need to be eating enough, eating a high protein diet, and also, potentially taking in carbohydrates peri-workout. That's what I like to do. I follow a more low-carb diet because it helps with productivity, appetite management, and suppression. But around workouts, I'm always taking carbs to fuel those efforts so that I can perform at my best. Another very important fact is kind of fatigue management, right? You can't necessarily push as hard on any given day. When I was running cross country and that was my main focus, every day we would run, we were kind of going balls to the wall. That is just not going to happen when you're also lifting, especially you're squatting heavy or something like that. You have to really be conscientious about when you push, when you go hard on your runs, also when you go hard on your lifts, so that you can have something left in the tank for tomorrow. So you're going to have to do a lot more kind of lower intensity zone 2 training. Potentially in lifting, you're going to have to do a little bit lower volume on your leg days, especially on your leg days. But that doesn't mean you can't still progress in a lower volume capacity with weight training. And same thing, that doesn't mean you can't still progress in the zone 2 area. You can run more miles, you can run for more time, and you can also drop your paces, right? So then once you've mastered how to properly train easy, that's when you start to put in hard days. That's when you start to put in higher intensity days where you're doing more volume on legs, you're pushing heavier weights, you're running faster, you're doing speed work, you're doing intervals, all of that stuff. And that's something that you kind of have to learn how to play with and change over time based off of how you're feeling, based off of how your body's responding to the stimulus that you're giving it. Everybody's going to be slightly different, so there is no cookie cutter program that works. But what's most important to understand is learn how to train easy so that you can then put in hard days when you're feeling ready. Finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about was autoregulation. Now, this is a concept that is essentially just about not being super adherent to any one day of your program, right? If you wake up and you're feeling absolutely beat to shit, I would not recommend pushing very hard, even though your program says you need to, right? If your heart rate variability is really low, you got a really bad night of sleep, your resting heart rate is elevated, you just don't feel good, that is a day that you need to take easy, because it's super easy to dig yourself into a hole, way, way easier than if you were just running or lifting on its own. So learning how to auto-regulate is very important. Taking the ego out of training, understanding that you can push hard. You're not being lazy if you take it easy on a day where you don't feel good, is very important to your long-term progress, because digging yourself out of these holes, these recovery holes, takes a long time to do, and you just end up plateauing for a really long time. Trust me, I've been in that situation. And then finally, you need to learn how to run on tired legs. This is just a non-negotiable. It is par for the course, but it does get easier. In the beginning, it really sucks. You lifted yesterday, you have to run today, you have a long run. Yesterday, I did a 15-mile run. The day before that, I had a leg day, and you just learn how to overcome it. Your body begins to adapt. Not only mentally it gets easier, but physically as well. And these are some of the benefits. There's physiologic benefits and kind of carryover between both that we can get into. But your body actually learns to adapt. Your body grows more capillaries within your muscles that you're using, especially like if you're running, you're using your legs. Your body grows more capillaries in the leg musculature to perfuse it with oxygen better. So this helps with recovery. You can recover faster. Your body is able to shuttle more oxygen, more nutrients. Your VO2 max increases. Your ability to recover during workouts increases. My rest times dropped to around 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes on heavy compounds, but my work capacity has increased exponentially due to running. And that's something that really is benefited by learning to run on tired legs. But overall, just take your time with it. This is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to be doing this is a lifestyle, right? You don't need to just do this for one few month block and then quit completely. The idea is to be able to be an all-around functionally fit person, not just a gym bro who has zero cardiovascular capability, or just a runner who is extremely weak and fragile. The idea is to be kind of 80% of both. And for me, that's what I love. I don't necessarily care to be the strongest guy in the gym. I don't care to be the fastest one at the starting line. I just want to be competent in all domains so that I can enjoy a hike, a cool hiking trip with my family, a cool expedition, right? You can go adventure, but at the same time, you're also not very fragile. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. Let me know if there's anything that you guys found interesting or you guys found useful in your hybrid training experience or your hybrid training journey. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe. It really helps with the algorithm. See ya.